Welcome to another edition of From the Press Box. Today is the 22nd of February, 2021. I am your co-host, Rob Leonard. Joining me is my other co-host, or my co-host, I should say. I am the host with my co-host, however it goes. We'll fix that.
The two of us.
I'm Rob Leonard. Joining me, of course, is my brother and award-winning sports writer, Tim Leonard. Hello, brother. How are you doing?
Good morning, brother. I'm outstanding. How are you?
Of course you are. You know, let me breathe in very heavily, brother. It smells like spring training. Spring training's coming up.
Is that what that smell is?
That's spring training, baby.
That's, brother.
You know, it's spring training. We love spring training.
Smells delicious.
Because every team is... Excuse me. Every team is...
Every team is trying to get past the COVID.
That's right. But every team also is 0-0, which means... You know, they could go all the way at that moment.
Which means the Mets are tied for first. Woohoo!
Mets are in first, brother.
Tied?
No.
Yes, the Braves are in first, too.
Yeah, that's the sad part. How did the Braves get back?
So are the Phillies.
I don't like the Braves in our division.
Yeah, of course you don't, because they're good.
Yeah, okay.
Braves are really good, brother. Really good.
Anyway, let's start off with spring training, brother. We'll start off with the Yankees since they haven't made as many deals as the Mets, and we'll get through them quickly, and then we'll go to the Mets.
Well, it's kind of debatable, but okay.
Well, you know, the Mets have made a lot of moves this year, brother.
Yes, they have. Of course they have. They needed to, but, I don't know. I mean, we can start with the Yankees if you want. We can start with the Mets if you want. It doesn't matter. Spring training, brother. We're talking about baseball. Yeah. And isn't it a nice thing? Isn't it a nice thing that we can finally talk about baseball? Because that means, more so than the groundhog, brother, that means winter's almost over.
Yes, it is, except when it snowed opening day back in the 80s with the Yankees.
Yeah, these things happen, bro. Don't be a downer. Don't be a downer, brother. Spring training.
I just remember it.
It's spring training down in FLA and some in Arizona.
Anyway, so let's start off with the Yankees. Well, first of all, the Yankees signed Brett Gardner.
How about that?
I'm not sure if that was the right move at this point because, you know.
It was the right move, brother. It's always the right move for a Gardy party.
Okay. And was it 1 year or 2 years?
It is 1 year with an option. Gardy is going to get $4 million for his 14th season in pinstripes. So you bring that kind of experience back. You bring that kind of a veteran back. He knows coming into the season that Clint Frazier is the starting left fielder. Is that going to change Gardy's attitude? No, of course not. It's just that he's not an everyday player anymore. And you know, I mean, that's just reality. Like I said, it's his 14th year with the Yankees. He obviously wanted to stay. He probably could have latched on with somebody else. So when you're talking about a guy who needs to be in pinstripes, then that's Brett Gardner, and it's more. There's a couple of reasons actually. Number one is if you look at the Yankees outfield in the last couple of years, obviously there's been a lot of injuries. You know, Aaron Judge has had a couple of significant injuries. Aaron Hicks had the arm injury and was out for most of 2019, and then didn't play or played some last year. So both of those guys, the expectation is that they're 100% healthy now, but injuries happen, and for whatever reason they happen a little bit more to Yankee outfielders, it seems, than to other players. It's also a reason why the Yankees signed Jay Bruce. We could be coming into a season where the Yankees wind up with both Jay Bruce and Brett Gardner on the bench, and it's not a terrible thing necessarily, but when you look at the Yankees, you can't help but say, is that overlap? I know why the Yankees signed Jay Bruce last week. It was because they wanted another left-handed bat. And Jay Bruce is a guy who they wanted to add a few years ago from the Mets, but the Mets wound up trading him to Cleveland instead. But they want a guy who can come up and if it's late in the game and they need a run, send up Jay Bruce and let's hope he can crash one over the short porch in right field at Yankee Stadium. So, Brett Gardner doesn't necessarily change that, but when you're looking at depth, and Aaron Boone, the manager, has said he might carry 14 pitchers at some points this year because it's going to be a crazy season pitching-wise because it was only 60 games last year and not a lot of pitchers got over 100 innings. You're going to need multiple positions on a bench, so that could be an issue with Brett Gardner and Jay Bruce both being around. I'm not sure it's going to happen.
Well, what about them doing like DHing or something along those lines? Or
if Giancarlo Stanton is healthy, he's going to be the DH as often as possible. There's no real need unless Stanton has a terrible lifetime record against a certain pitcher, and maybe they give him that day off. Stanton's going to DH as much as he can, as long as he can, for as long as he stays healthy. So he's that guy. That's why they're paying him $28 million or whatever it is. He's there to hit. He's not there to play defense because he's not really much of a defensive player.
Right.
But the Yankees need him to stay healthy, and they need him to be a 40 and 110 kind of guy. That's one of the keys to their offense, and it's again one of the other key to the offense is for him to stay healthy as much as possible and play at least 140 games.
Well, hopefully, what the Yankees said a couple of weeks ago to him and Aaron Judge, you don't have to bench press the world. Maybe you should just do more like little dumbbell things or something. These guys are already gigantors anyway, so. Maybe they have to realize, hey, we don't have to bench press everything. We'll just stay in shape, which I think is a smart thing. There's no reason you have to be, super big to play baseball.
Well, I mean, we've discussed it on the show before, brother. To me, Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton both should be doing some Pilates or yoga or something that strengthens and stretches and lengthens the muscles. All of their injuries have been muscle related. Although Aaron Judge did have a broken bone in his wrist a couple of years ago, but all of the other injuries with Judge, it's been obliques. With Stanton, it's been numerous leg issues, a lot of calf stuff, but quads and stuff like that. Those have been the issues, and it's something that both of these guys need to figure out what to do. You're right. They shouldn't just be lifting weights. They should be doing stretching exercises, and they should be doing flexibility exercises and stuff that is going to allow them to do what they do every day and not get hurt. How many oblique injuries did Mickey Mantle have in his career?
I don't know. None.
I would hazard to guess that it was probably zero. All right.
Yeah,
who swung harder than Mickey Mantle?
No one.
Nobody. So that's you can say the same for Reggie Jackson too. I mean, but yes, both those guys struck out a lot, but neither one of them had oblique injuries.
No, and did you see what's up with Reggie? He's decided to sort of step away from the Yankees, the special advisor role he's had since the 90s. He decided to, step away. He didn't say he was angry with the Yankees. He said he loved the Steinbrenner family. He just felt it was time to, at this point in his life, not to worry about. I'm not sure what he did. I mean, I feel it was just a check they mailed out on January 1st.
No, I mean there was responsibilities. I mean, let's face it, Reggie's up there now. He's in his 70s. I mean,
I know
he's not a young man anymore. Reggie has earned the opportunity to sit down and not have to go traveling all over the place, and he's gonna. I'm sure he's gonna sit and tinker with all the numerous cars that he owns, and probably just drive around California and do whatever Reggie wants to do. He's a I hate to say it, he's a senior citizen now.
Yeah, he's still Reggie though.
Let the man enjoy his life. Let him do what he wants to do. Exactly.
He's still Reggie.
He will always be Reggie.
Only think about it. He only spent 5 years in New York, and that really helped glue his legend. I mean, he was with the Oakland A's and everything, but it's New York where it's Mr. October. He wasn't Mr. October of the A's. So
Well, I mean, he led the A's to World Series titles,
right,
and was obviously a big part of those swinging A's teams back in the 70s. But yeah, I mean, his legend was cemented in New York, and the 3 home runs in the World Series, and that made the Mr. October legend. That was it. I mean, that especially that one game.
Yeah, it's hard to leave one game just does it all for you. Let's quickly talk about the Mets, Tim. Mets have done a lot this year, off season. Uncle Stevie has been pretty good, I think, trying to get people. Sometimes they don't get the exact person they want, but I don't mind that's happened. I think Uncle Stevie is now. Is he off Twitter now? Is it or?
He's off Twitter. He's off Twitter because of the GameStop situation.
Because some idiot was attacking him for whatever reason.
It was multiple idiots, and they attacked him because he helped bail out the guy from the company that had shorted GameStop's stock. So they saw that as him somehow selling out. I mean. I'm sure it
was a business deal, not I'm sure it helps that he knows the guy, but I'm sure it's a business deal also.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I'm sure he's going to get some interest off of that and make some money, but I think Steve Cohen came to the Mets as the owner, and fans somehow identified him and saw him as some sort of champion of the little guy because he was a Mets fan. Well, he's also a Mets fan with $14 billion. I mean, he's not an everyday guy. He's not a regular guy. You're not going to go hang out with Steve Cohen and have a beer. It's just not.
Well, I think the only way you can do that is if he doesn't tell you he's Steve Cohen. I think that's the only way. If you walked in and didn't recognize him, and you're at the bar and you start chatting with him, maybe he's not wearing his glasses that day or something. I don't know.
Highly unlikely, brother.
I know.
Highly. So anyway, brother, the Mets have signed. I'll tell you what, this was kind of a low-level deal, but this was a deal that I liked from the Mets. They signed a right-handed pitcher by the name of Taijuan Walker, who used to pitch for the Diamondbacks, who has had Tommy John surgery, returned from Tommy John surgery last season, and now should be 100%. Because as we've said before, brother, it's not the season you come back from Tommy John surgery. It's the season after when you actually regain your powers, which is why I keep telling people, Luis Severino this year, don't expect miracles. And same goes for Noah Syndergaard. Don't expect miracles. These guys are coming back from major injuries, major surgery, and it takes a while for a pitcher to get back to being themselves. I mean, there's going to be it typically is there's a little bit of a dip, and then it's the year after where they get back to the level they were before the surgery. So that's what I'm expecting. But Taijuan Walker is a guy who came back from the surgery last year, pitched fairly well. But he is a guy who I think is an outstanding addition to the Mets rotation, and really for not, major money. It's a 2-year deal for $20 million, which, sounds like a lot for sure. But, here's a guy who last year split time between Seattle and Toronto, made 11 starts, had a 2.70 ERA, and a 1.16 whip, which those are really good numbers. And also had 50 strikeouts and 53 in the third innings, which if you're getting a strikeout an inning, which that basically is, then you're doing a good job. So, for those two teams, he wound up with a 4-3 record, but 28 years old, a guy who was a really well-respected prospect when he was coming up. I really do like this deal for the Mets, and it gives them the one more starter that they need to really solidify the rotation. Look at the Mets rotation right now. All right, you're looking at obviously DeGrom, Stroman, Syndergaard when he comes back, Carrasco, and what? Who am I forgetting? I'm forgetting one guy, and Taijuan Walker. So. Right. Look at it compared to last year. last year you had Porcello, you had Waka, you had a bunch of guys who basically it was, let's sign these guys and just pray. And this year, the Mets really now have a solid and formidable rotation, and this team is now has the kind of rotation depth that they're going to need to maybe challenge the Braves. And I don't know if that's actually going to happen or how it's going to happen, because the Braves really do have a better team than the Mets.
Sure.
But the one possible Achilles for the Braves is that their pitching is very young. It's good, but it's very young. The Braves have 3 pitchers in their rotation who have 2 years or less of experience in the major leagues. So we'll see what happens there. But I'm pretty pumped for this for Taijuan Walker and the Mets. That to me is a good bit of business, because this is how you win. It's not necessarily about signing Trevor Bauer or massive names like that. Although
who's Trevor Bauer? I don't know who's that guy.
Yeah, I know. He's the guy the Mets didn't sign.
I know they didn't need him.
Yeah, no, they did.
No, they didn't.
They did. But because this, you build a team, and it's nice. It's always nice to get the big shiny prize on the free agent market. But let's face facts: the Mets didn't get any of those guys. And remember when spring training started, brother? Mets fans were all giddy. Oh, we're going to get Trevor Bauer. We're going to get George Springer. We're going to get JT Realmuto. Well, no, you didn't get any of them.
No, we didn't.
But you know what? The Mets still made some pretty good moves in the offseason. You got 2/5 of a rotation with Carrasco and now Walker. And you got, it's also about what they got rid of. Getting rid of Steven Matz to me was a good move, because he hadn't performed in New York.
Which is unfortunate, because I liked him as a pitcher.
Yeah, of course, and he's a Long Island guy. I mean, I think everybody was rooting for Steven Matz to do well, because you want the Long Island guy to do well, But the change of scenery for him was needed for sure. But this, and the Mets have added some bullpen pieces. From what I'm hearing, they're still looking to get rid of Jurice Familia and Dellin Betances. I don't see them finding a taker for either one. I still think, I tell you what, I still think Betances could possibly add something to this team, depending on what kind of role he's given. And I'm assuming he's healthy by now. And after the Achilles injury that he had with the Yankees, and I don't know how much he was recovered. He certainly didn't have a long spring training last year to get ready, and then he had a poor season. But with relievers, it's hard to judge, because a lot of relievers didn't even pitch 20 innings last year. So that's like 1 or 2 bad innings.
It's hard to believe. You think about it. Just how short the season was.
Yeah.
If you get how hopefully it doesn't affect the players in the sense that it was so short. Maybe they I'm not saying not to skip the season. I wouldn't have wanted that, but you wish they had started earlier. Figured it out, because they just couldn't figure it out for a while. That was
they couldn't figure it out because COVID was going crazy, and let's face it, it's still not good, but it's getting better. The numbers in New York certainly are improving.
Yeah.
We were under 3% positivity rate yesterday for the first time since November, which is encouraging. It's still 7.3% in New York City, which is a little discouraging, but that's with any luck and good good sense, those numbers will continue to come down. So, but when you're looking at the Mets, there's a lot to be happy about and a lot to be excited about. And now, to me, the Mets are back to being a team that has the kind of pitching that can win a title. And it wasn't like that last year. When 2/5 of your starting rotation is Michael Wacha and Rick Porcello, you have issues. You really do. I mean, yes, those guys have had really good careers, but
right. No, I know what you're
you
talking
can't
about.
Rely on them.
It's those if you're going to pick 2 guys, those aren't your 2 guys to rely on.
Yeah, but they were just going for the cheap solution, and like I said, they were hoping for the best.
All right. Anything else with the Mets, brother?
Well, not necessarily with the Mets, because the Mets did report today. Francisco Lindor, brother, he was He was in Port St. Lucie yesterday. Showed up,
Right.
smiling. He was smiling. Lindor. He smiles more than Donald Trump lies, if you can believe that. I mean, that's how much this kid smiles.
I think he's looking forward to next year's big paycheck.
I think he's looking forward to this year's big paycheck because the Mets are going to make him a massive offer.
Well, I'm talking about that for next year.
Yeah.
So.
Well, he's got a big paycheck this year too, brother.
Yeah, but it's going to be bigger next year, brother.
Bigger and attached to a 7 or 8 year deal. So
yeah, so he's going to be very set up for the rest of his life after.
Absolutely, he probably already is, but yeah, he'll be really set up for life after within a year.
Yeah. So
but the Mets are starting up today. We're getting all excited. Like I said, baseball's here, brother.
I love it. And we do know that is it this week that these some of the arenas could have like 10%.
Yeah.
Or was it next? Yeah. This week.
No, they're starting up. I know. I saw something yesterday. Columbus Blue Jackets are going to have fans in the stands. Yeah, like you said, the 10% number is what's being suggested for now.
I wonder how they're going to do that. I do.
They're just going to spread people out. I mean, it's just a matter of common sense. I mean, if I'm going to a game, to be honest, I really don't want to be sitting near somebody. Stay away from me.
But if you're going with your buddies, this situation, you don't mind.
Well, yeah, but you're going to see little clusters, and by clusters I mean like no more than 4 people. But if you go to a game with people, then the assumption is that you can trust those people, and that everybody has either I assume has been tested, and there is that expectation to know, all right, hey, you don't have it, but. To be safe, they're going to spread people out, and even if it's a bunch of friends at the game, you can spread them out a little bit and still have them close enough where it's like they're there together. It's like just put them a couple seats away from each other.
Well, my other thought process is how are they going to dish out the tickets. So they say, okay, all you people who used to sit in like Section 329, we'll say, because I know that section. I know people who sit in that section. It's a social scene as much as a game scene. Now, do they say, okay, let's get the 329 guys and then spread them out? And, the people who paid, $200 for, third row seats, well, we're not going to sell those for $200. I mean, do they sell at the top price or the low price to get, is it general admission or that type of thing? That's my only but question about how they're going to do all this, because it makes sense to have the real fans. Well, maybe the wrong term, but the fans there cheering instead of just sitting there drinking wine, or sitting in a box or something.
Well, I mean, I haven't heard specifics about that yet, and maybe I missed that story. I don't know, but I would assume they're just going to do some sort of a lottery. And just,
I guess, but I wonder what the price is.
Either that, or maybe even try to spread the tickets around. Where like if they call up all their season ticket holders and say, hey, we do you want to come first of all? And if they say yes, and let's say the Islanders wind up with 7,000 people who say yes. Well, obviously you can't give them all tickets to the same game, so you start spreading them around. It's like, all right, well, here's whatever it's going to be, 1,500 here. Here's 1,500 for the next game. And you give them that opportunity where, hey, we have, March 12th against the Flyers. Well, are you in or not? And just say, hey, this is your opportunity. But there's got to be a better way to do it, because if you have the team calling all of those people, that's going to take forever.
Yeah, well,
but
it's going to be interesting how they do it.
It's a good question. I don't know how they're going to do it, but
yeah,
they have to figure out a way. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people who desperately want to go to games, and there's also going to be a significant number of people who are going to say, you know what, I'm not ready to go yet, and it's to me it's not safe, and I haven't had COVID or I haven't gotten vaccinated. I still have negative tests, but I don't want to take the chance. Testing is supposed to be a big part of this thing, and vaccination is supposed to be a big part of this thing.
Well, I guess if you were vaccinated, you would come in with your paperwork and say, hey, I've been vaccinated.
Right.
Okay, that's good. Okay, get out of here. And if you haven't been vaccinated, if you haven't been vaccinated, they give you the 15-minute test. that'd be still a lot of testing. So,
well, no, they're not going to be doing tests at the arena. You're going to have to show them a test. You're going to have to show them a negative test from probably within the last 48 hours, and to be able to get into the arena. I mean, they're not going to take any chances with that. So,
right.
And they're not going to do hundreds of tests just to get some people into the arena. That's
well, I do know some people in for the Islanders section. It's called Section 329. And those people, it's not just a game for them. It's a social scene. They're friends with each other outside the game. They hang out at the bars. They go, in away games, if they go to a certain bar to, hang out together. Then, they go to the Islander game, the next day or whatever, they come back home. So, those people are probably all tested already. They're all ready. But, yeah, it's going to be fun. It's going to be great to see not just the Islanders, but the Devils and the Knicks and the Rangers, and it'll be real cheering, and not. I've gotten so used to the fake cheering.
I hate it. I still hate it.
That it bothers me a little bit because, like, I was watching the Pittsburgh game with the Islanders on Saturday. Yeah, there
was two of them.
So the Penguins score. They raise up the cheering, and then you just hear it sort of go down. Not in a natural way, and then. When the Islanders score, you don't hear that cheer. Not that you would hear it anyway, but they sort of put it up a little too high. And if you're not paying attention, and some people aren't, you would think that this was real. So it is very.
I don't, but
it's very strange. They've taken this whole game, video game mentality of cheer, having the cheering and stuff part of the game type of mentality of doing this for TV, basically, because that's what it's for.
Right, and that's my problem with it. Is there's nothing real about it. It's all fake. And like if I'm watching Premier League, like this past weekend, Tottenham was playing at West Ham. Well, all of a sudden now you're hearing cheers during the game. Come on, you Spurs! It's like, well, if they were at West Ham, chances are you wouldn't hear it nearly as loudly as they portray it.
No, if you were at West Ham, Tim, the next thing you'd hear is some guy rooting for West Ham going over to the Tottenham guy, start punching the crap out of him.
No, that doesn't happen that doesn't happen like you think it does, brother. But
they all love each other.
No, they don't love each other. No, they don't love each other at all. But you might hear it once or twice in a game. Over there, it's like the visiting fans sit in one section. And
really?
And they limit the number of away fans who can come in because of the fights and because of all that. So I was in that one time, and it was I had no idea what the situation was. I was asking people sitting next to me. I was sitting next to this older couple, and I'm like what's going on here? Like, why are there security people going up every step? And why is the section next to us empty? And they're like, well, that's so that. When they throw coins at you, they might not hit you. And I'm like, wait a minute. I'm sitting closest to that section. Like, I was on the last seat in the row, closest to the other. And I'm like, so wait a minute. Am I going to get hit with something? And they were like, probably not. And I'm like, okay, well, okay. But it was an entirely new experience for me. And that. That sort. I mean, did we cheer? Yeah, we did. But it was just a different scenario. And when I hear that in every game, it's like when the Islanders score a goal on the road, there's like an eruption of noise, and I'm like, this wouldn't happen in real life. Like,
I'm wondering if that's, and I don't know the answer. I'm just speculating, but I'm often wondering, is that the MSG people putting that noise on, or is that the arena noise? Or, because obviously MSG, they cover the Islanders and the Rangers too, and the Devils. And you think that maybe they're raising or lowering in the truck or something, I don't know, but it's.
I'm assuming
I look forward to when they get rid of that.
Yeah, no, that's why you bring real fans back.
Many years ago, the Nets were pumping in noise when they played the Meadowlands, because they would have like 8,000 people there.
So they were horrible back then.
Right. And, so that's something to think about. Anyway, you're listening to 90.3 WHPC, The Voice of Nassau Community College. Sports Talk is Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. Also, every Tuesday, 10 p.m. to midnight. We are part of the Sports Talk family. We're from the Press Box here every Monday, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. The show becomes a podcast later on. You can go to nccradio.org and find us there. Of course, it's also starting at Spreaker.com. So either way, I mean, we're all over the place with this podcast. Every week it goes up when we, because we actually get a bunch of people listening afterwards because they like the banter, brother, of us brothers.
Yes, we do banter.
Yes, because some brothers think it's like, oh wow, that's the way I talk with my brother.
Yeah.
So anyway, brother,
we do that. We do talk like brothers.
Yes, we are. Of course, we are brothers. Anyway, quickly, in Major League Baseball, Ian Desmond, brother, walks away from the Rockies for the second straight season because COVID-19.
COVID-19, yes, brother. He is being exceedingly cautious.
He's being too cautious.
Well, it's he wants to spend the time with his family. He wants to be safe. I don't know if he comes back from this. I mean, he can't. How do you take 2 years off? Well, I mean, that's the thing. He says he's going to stay in shape, and he also says it's for now. I mean, that's the other thing he said. I think he's looking to wait until everything with the virus is done and it's in the rearview mirror. But we're looking at a guy who is now 35 years old. Didn't play last year at all. Probably will not play for at least half, if not 3/4 of this season. It sounds like he might be willing to come back in, August or maybe September or something. But, I mean, by that point, who knows where the Rockies are going to be? I mean, the Rockies have no shot at doing anything this year. So I don't know, but Ian Desmond he was owed $8 million this year, and was supposed to have made $5.5 million of what was supposed to be a $15 million salary last season.
Right.
The Rockies, for the contract that they signed with Desmond, have a $15 million option for him for next season, with a $2 million buyout. Now, I fully expect that buyout to be exercised, because why are you going to give $15 million to a guy who would be 36 next year who hasn't played in 2 seasons?
Do you think this might be a thing to maybe help him get traded? Say, hey,
no,
trade me?
No, because if it was, he would just say trade me. Players are not shy about demanding a trade,
right,
or at least asking for a trade. So it's $8 million for this season really. For this numbers that Desmond has put up in his career, assuming he would put up those numbers again, in 2019 he hit 255 with 20 home runs in 140 games. I mean, this is a guy who has been a productive hitter. I don't know. It's a strange case because I wasn't expecting anybody to opt out for COVID reasons, and then I came across this story the other day, and I was really surprised by it.
I'm too.
Unless
he thinks he can, maybe his wife's pregnant, or someone in the family feels might, get it from him if he were to get it. I don't get it. I mean, this year is much different than last year. They know a lot more about the COVID-19 this year than last year. It's on its way downward. There's now a vaccine. There's a lot of things a year ago we didn't have.
Right. There are a lot of positive signs, obviously.
Yeah. So,
but he's obviously being very cautious, and he has his reasons. As far as I know, he does have young children. That probably factors into it. But
a lot of other guys do too.
This is also a guy who's made a lot of money already in baseball, and certainly doesn't need to play for the paycheck. So that's another issue.
Okay.
Before we get off baseball, bro, I did want to bring up Domingo Germán, the Yankees pitcher.
Right.
He's a guy who, as most Yankee fans know, in fact, all Yankee fans should know, was suspended for all of last season, going back to 2019, for a domestic violence episode against the mother of his child. Apparently, the word is coming out that Germán actually slapped her at a team event. and it was witnessed by several of his teammates. I know Zach Britton was not very forgiving when the subject of Herman was brought up. But I mean, this is a guy who, assuming everything goes well and assuming everything is good with him now, because I know he's undergone some domestic violence counseling and hopefully has changed his ways as far as all of this goes. But Britton was still like, this is not necessarily a guy I want on my team.
Right.
So Herman knows, and he spoke about this the other day. Spoke about how he wants to have the chance to speak with his teammates, both individually and collectively, and have those talks with these guys before he talks to the media, because obviously he was asked about it. I'm hoping that all of that is behind him, because obviously domestic violence is a bad thing and shouldn't happen. But also because this is a guy who the Yankees are relying on for this season, and he's an important piece for them in terms of their rotation. So, we'll see where that goes. Also, brother, I did want to mention that former Yankee Johnny Damon was arrested on suspicion of driving under the influence and resisting arrest last week. His wife also was arrested for resisting arrest. They had a little confrontation with the police. If you saw the mugshot, Johnny Damon was looking rough. I think the suspicion may prove correct. One other thing, brother. I did want to mention, this was the best quote that I saw maybe the entire year so far, maybe the entirety of 2021. Corey Kluber was asked about the Yankees. He said, and I quote, "It's a first-class organization. It's probably the measuring stick for any professional sports organization."
Well, what else is he going to say, brother?
Welcome to the Yankees, Corey Kluber.
What else is he going to say? You're brainwashed. You're still, George has been dead how many years? You still got that stupid haircut. You can't grow a big fuzzy beard like I would.
Welcome to the Yankees, Corey Kluber.
What's with the haircut? That was a George Steinbrenner thing. Hal looks like he might have.
It's all about being a professional, brother. It's all about being a professional.
You can have long hair and be a professional. You can have a cool fat beard if you want.
No, Syndergaard looks ridiculous, brother.
You can have a great James Harden type beard.
That's horrible. I hate his beard.
Who's copied his beard? If you ever watch Blackish, Anthony Anderson has the James Harden beard going right now.
That's just such a bad look. It really is bad.
I don't know if he realizes it, but it's the case. Anyway, brother, the Islanders we were just speaking about before. They keep going up and down in this we call the East Division. It's a sponsored division this year, but we'll call it the East Division because
East.
It's easier to remember. It's like MetLife Stadium. Do I have to call it MetLife Stadium, or do I call it the horrible place where the Jets and Giants play? Anyway, the Islanders are now in 5th place in the East Division. They were in 2nd place. They lost back-to-back to the Penguins. Congratulations to Sidney Crosby. 1,000 points.
Games.
Games. I'm sorry. Games. I'm sorry.
He's got more than 1,000 points.
Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry. Games.
Way more. Yes.
And earlier in the week, the Islanders beat up on the Sabres. Back-to-back games. I like these back-to-back games. It reminds me of the older days when they used to do this. It's going to be interesting to see how next year, if they go back to the old divisions. I'm sure the Canadian people are loving the fact that the Canadians are playing just Canadians. I'm sure that, and plus the players are going to stay with the Canadian dollar, So, you would think that this could stay. I'm not saying it will. But anyway, the Islanders go up and down the division. They're playing well, but
they're playing better. I mean, it's a tight division. And there's obviously some good teams in the division, and the Penguins are one of them. 4-1 for the Penguins in the first game, and then 3-2 in the second game with Chris Letang scoring late in the third period for the Penguins. I mean, this was a little bit disappointing because the Islanders, after the back-to-back wins over Buffalo, it seemed like they were going in the right direction. Buffalo, of course, though, I mean, that was, maybe that was, a little bit of a kind of a mirage, because the Sabres were coming back, after not playing for a couple of weeks because of COVID-19 reasons. They had a bunch of players on the protocol, so they were postponing games, and the Islanders got the Sabres in their first two games back on Monday and Tuesday. Right. So it was 3-1 or 3-0 and 3-1. So those might be the easiest games they play all season because there's only so much conditioning that the Sabres can do, and there was the first of those games, the 3-0 game. The Sabres didn't have a shot in the third period. So obviously they were gassed. That's just obvious fact. Is they were gassed in the third period. No shots on goal. They were never going to win that game. So,
also with the Islanders and the Penguins, the first game the Islanders looked horrible, and the second game the Islanders were much better, but they just couldn't score. I mean, they scored 2 goals, but every time they get close to the goal, it just didn't happen. I mean, it's interesting. I think you're right. I think they're playing much better than a few weeks ago, but we'll see what happens.
I wouldn't say much better. I'd say a little better, but I mean, technically they're tied for third. They have 19 points, and the Penguins and the Flyers both have 19 points. But the Islanders have played more games than both of those teams. So, let's face it, the reality says they're in 5th place at this point. But the East Division, it's a tight division, and it's you're going to see teams going up and down pretty much all season. They're going to be exchanging places, and it's going to happen every game where somebody's going to move up and somebody's going to move down just based on one result.
Brother, just move a little closer to your mic. The mic's starting to fade or something.
I know. I'm in the same place, brother. So
I know, but I'm just saying it's starting to fade just slightly. Anyway, brother, let's see. The NHL had their annual outdoor games this weekend. I was kind of shocked they were doing it. I know it's a very popular thing. It usually happens on January 1st, but obviously the season started late. But it might also help the fact that in Lake Tahoe, it was pretty warm for an outdoor game, and some of the ice was melting, and they had to take an 8-hour break to. How do you plan that? I read that the players.
Didn't plan it.
I know, but I mean, once it happens, the players had lunch supposedly, which if I was a player, I would not want to eat and then go back out and skate. They also tried to take a nap.
It was 8 hours, brother.
I know, but could have they maybe gone the next day? That's my question.
I don't think so because they had the Flyers game, and the Flyers and the Bruins played the next day.
I don't know, man. I think
how are you gonna play back-to-back games outdoors? I mean, already any outdoor game, there are going to be issues with the ice. I mean, you can't control the weather. For the NHL's purposes, the perfect day would be overcast and cold, because then you don't have to worry about the ice. Because then you don't
someplace up in Canada is what you're saying.
Well, any place, Troy, New York would be perfect for that. But for what they were doing in Lake Tahoe, this is nothing that could have been planned for. And
right.
I tell you what, I give the NHL credit, and a lot of people are ripping the NHL today or yesterday. But for me, and from my optimistic outlook, I'm looking at the NHL took a shot, and it maybe didn't go so well. Now, what I mean by taking a shot, if you saw before the game on Saturday, the view was incredible.
Oh,
they actually built the rink on a golf course. I don't know, for some reason, even one of the players thought that they were actually going to play on Lake Tahoe, which kind of cracks me up because it's really just ignorant. But Lake Tahoe doesn't freeze.
Okay.
There were people in boats watching the game. So, people were out in their boats while the game was going on. So they actually built this rink on a golf course. It was pretty amazing that they were able to even do this. But it was pretty quick to see that this rink was not going to stand up to Mother Nature, because the one thing that was bad about the weather, and you'll never hear me say this probably ever again, was that it was sunny.
Yeah.
So
no.
for the NHL, sun was bad because sun just wreaked havoc with the ice. And I watched the first period, and it seemed like every stoppage in play turned into a longer stoppage because they had to fix chunks of ice because the ice was melting from the sun, even though it was like 33 degrees. And you know, it was dangerous. There were chunks taken out of the ice. And there was one point where the referee was skating across the rink, you know, to get to a face-off, and he was just kind of gliding. He wasn't really paying attention. That's what people in the NHL do, refs and players, because they're so good at skating, they don't even have to think about it. And all of a sudden, the ref fell down because he hit a rut in the eye, like a chunk of, and like these guys are all accomplished skaters. If they fall down from a chunk in the ice like that, it's bad.
Yeah. It's like falling, it's like stopping on a dime, so to speak. You know, when you throw change on the ice and then they skate on and they stop.
So anyway, this game was supposed to start just after noon local time in Lake Tahoe. It was 3:00 for us. But after that first period, they said we can't play on this. It's dangerous. And somebody's going to get hurt. And the last thing the NHL wants is for some player to suffer a major injury in what essentially is a vanity game for them. You know, they do this to maybe draw more eyes. They do it because they turn it into an event. And granted, there were no fans there this year like there usually are, because that's one of the things that they usually do is to bring, you know, major crowds to a game. But they weren't able to play. So then they wound up resuming the game at 9:02 local time PM, and it was just after midnight here. and then they had to play 2 more periods. So the game didn't end until 2:00 in the morning.
Yeah, it's I mean, I understand why they do it, and I actually love the game. I always try to watch the game. I think it's a good thing to grab viewers who maybe wouldn't. Right. You know, it's a great story game. Of course, a lot of the Canadian players love it because it reminds them when they were kids and they would be playing on the ice, you know, in the pond or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah, so to me, I've always liked it, and I will sometimes make sure I watch the games just because, you know, I remember when they finally did it a few years ago here in New York, and I wanted to go to the game, but the tickets were so damn expensive. You know, they were charging like $300 for like, oh no, that's they don't even charge that much for the Yankee game. You know, it's like
it was a couple $100. It was you know, it's a crazy expensive ticket.
It was crazy expensive. It's right. So, but yeah, it was you know, I'm glad they did it. I think next year, you know, when they go back to normal season, they'll do it in January like they're supposed to, and they won't have the melting. I mean, it's February now, but you know, the sun hits the ground differently at different parts of the year, so that's definitely part of it.
Yeah, but when the sun is out, it's going to melt, and you know, even if the temperature is right, I mean, you're still going to get that residual heat from the sun. So
yeah,
it was unfortunate, but that's what happened.
Right. Anyway, brother, let's see the Nets. James Harden it's turning into a good deal, isn't he, brother?
You know, it still might be too early.
I don't know, man. But 27 points.
I might have to admit being wrong.
Uh-oh.
And we all know I don't like to do that because it's
you
really
never
rare
do that.
It's
you know,
really rare
that
to
hold your head underwater to admit you're wrong.
It's really rare that I'm wrong. So, but right now, that James Harden trade it's starting to look good. It's starting to look real good.
It is.
But part of the reason why it's starting to look so good is because the big three, quote unquote, of James Harden, Kevin Durant, and Kyrie Irving have only played 7 or 8 games together. So
right.
The good part about it for the Nets is they still have 2 stars on the floor at all times.
Yep.
You know, Durant has missed the last 4 games with a hamstring, a tweaked hamstring, which if he misses any more games, they're going to have to officially call it a hamstring pull because that seems to be what it is. But James Harden has been fantastic for the Nets, and he's been James Harden, and he really hasn't disrupted anything. You know, he's been, and by when I say he's been James Harden, that's 25 to 30 points a night, 10 or 11 assists a night, and he's going to grab a bunch of rebounds too. So when you look at what he has brought to this Nets team, he has brought somebody who can carry the load, and he's had to do that several nights. And you know, when you look at what the Nets have done, and I think one thing that was kind of not really given a lot of attention, but I think might wind up being the key moment for the Nets this season, assuming that they do achieve something, is the conversation that James Harden and Kyrie Irving had about a week and a half ago, where Kyrie Irving just said to James Harden, "Hey, you be the point guard." And that was basically the entire conversation. James Harden has averaged, since he came to the Nets, he's averaged 11 assists a game. That's unbelievable.
That's fantastic. That's what you wanted a point guard.
The Nets coach, Steve Nash, would be impressed with that.
Yes.
All right. And he's like one of the best assist men in NBA history. He's impressed by that. So if you can get a clear roles and not have egos bruised, then you're doing it right. And I was under the impression that when this trade was made, hey, there's only one basketball, and what are they going to do? But it seems like they've gotten it sorted out. And if they can do that and continue along without the egos getting in the way, then this certainly is a championship caliber team.
This is, if he's going to do 11 assists a game, that is incredible, and that's what you want from your point guard. And if he's going to get 27 points, that's even better, because you don't know if he's going to shoot or pass. And that is something that is so strong in what you want with your point guard. You want him to have the other team guessing all the time. And he's been doing good. It's been quiet over there in Brooklyn, which is a good thing.
It's been quiet because they haven't all been together. It's also been quiet because they've been on the road for the last 5 games. And the Nets finished an unbeaten 5-game road trip with a 112-108 win over the Clippers. And that's back-to-back statement wins for them, because they beat the Lakers pretty handily a couple nights before, 109-98. And again, this was without Durant, but the Lakers were without Anthony Davis, which obviously didn't help them either. But the Nets handled the Lakers. That game, I watched most of that game. That they were in control the entire way, and LeBron was the only guy that did anything for the Lakers.
Right.
Obviously he had 32 points, but in that game, Harden had 23 points, 11 assists, and Joe Harris, the member of the Nets who rarely is ever mentioned, but he had 21 points. He was 6 for 7 from 3-point range. So that was a really solid game for the Nets. And they finished it up with a hard-fought win over the Clippers. Harden in that game, 37 points, 11 rebounds, and 7 assists.
Right.
Kyrie Irving had 28 points and 8 assists. So those two guys are able to carry the load. They don't have to have all 3 guys all the time.
Okay, brother.
That showed the NBA. This team is for real.
Anyway, let's quickly talk about the Knicks. They've won 4 in a row. They're 15-16. I think
they won 4 out of 5, brother. 4 out of 5.
4 out of 5. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I think they're playing very well. Actually, they're fun to watch.
Sure.
They're a different team to watch than the Nets, only because this team is learning how to do it. This team could be maybe in the playoffs this year, but I think definitely in the playoffs next year, based if they keep it together. It's fun watching the Knicks. Even if they're winning, and then they have been winning. They've been playing. They're not dominating, I will say that, but they're also playing well together. I think that's very
this is
important for this team.
Yeah, this is a developing franchise, and this is a growing franchise, and obviously they're reliant on guys like R.J. Barrett, and they want to be more reliant on guys like Obi Toppin and Emmanuel Quickley, even though both of those guys only played 9 minutes last night in a win over the Minnesota Timberwolves. But this is a team that you're going to have some growing pains, and Julius Randle is doing a lot for this team. I don't know that he's the future for them. I mean, he certainly he certainly should be an all-star this season, but
right.
is he a guy that you want to make that centerpiece? I don't know that he is. And they brought Derrick Rose in, and Derrick Rose is starting to already get a lot of minutes, which is a little concerning to me because I would like to see Emmanuel quickly getting those minutes. But the Knicks are, and Tom Thibodeau are going to have to figure that one out because you need to develop your rookies. And against Minnesota, Toppin and Quickly both only played 9 minutes. That's not nearly enough. These
right,
guys
but
need
also,
to be on the floor.
If Derrick Rose is helping you win, then that's
don't care
too. Well,
don't care.
This is the year the Knicks want to prove to their fans that maybe the turning point has happened. It took 20 years to get to this point, maybe, or 10 years, or whatever you want to use as your turning point. But I think that's very important for the Knicks. And, they have a coach that's seemingly doing really well so far. Derrick Rose likes the coach, and I think that's important. So there's a lot of things going on here, brother, that I think for the Knicks and their fans is pretty good. I mean, to have Derrick Rose there has been important. I don't think he's been, destroying the team chemistry.
No, he's actually added to it. He's actually added to it, and
sure.
I do want to point out the Knicks right now they're 15-16. I mean, right. Nobody expected the Knicks to be this close to 500, and they're only a half a game behind the Celtics and 1 game behind the Raptors. So yes, they're in last place in the Atlantic Division, but it's not last place like they're 7-19.
Right.
So they're a competitive team, and they are a playoff team. So progress is being made. I don't want to get too crazy about the progress because I don't think they'll do anything in the playoffs.
I actually do because I think I don't usually in the old days if it was 2 years ago by Christmas time that's when the Knicks would start to fall. After they'd have a run during Christmas. And then, January 6th, that's when everything would start falling apart. This year, they haven't had that falling apart time yet. So that's something to look forward to.
I get that, but my issue with the Knicks is that the guy who is right now the centerpiece of their team isn't the guy who will be the centerpiece of the team going forward. So I want to be able to develop.
Brother, you have 1 minute? Quickly, soccer.
Soccer. Well, Manchester City beat Arsenal 1-0 to remain 10 points ahead of Manchester United. Liverpool, brother, your boys, they're falling apart. They lost at home again for the 4th straight game. They lost at home to crosstown rival Everton.
That's like the Islanders losing to the Rangers.
Exactly. It was the first win for Everton at Anfield in the 21st century, brother.
Wow.
It's been a long time. Leicester remains in 3rd place with 49 points. They're in 3rd on goal differential. And West Ham is 4th with 45 points. West Ham beat Tottenham 2-1 on Sunday. It was just a disgusting game. And I am all for the sacking of Jose Mourinho, who said that his and his staff coaching methods are second to nobody in the world. And if that is the case, then why is Tottenham in 9th place?
Good point, brother. That just about does it for From the Press Box here every Monday, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. It becomes a podcast later on at Spreaker.com and NCCRadio.org. I'm Rob Leonard. Joining me, of course, is my brother and award-winning sports writer, Tim Leonard. Thanks to Sean Novat in the studio, and we'll see you next Monday with more sports. Take care and bye-bye.